Look around you, look down the bar from you, at the faces that you see. Are you sure this is where you want to be? These are your friends, but are they your real friends? Do they love you as much as me? Are you sure this is where you want to be? You seem in such a hurry to leave.
I was standing at the very top row of the Liberty University football stadium. I could look out and see for miles and miles. I could look from that place and see the peaks of Otter. It was a crystal clear day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. And that football stadium was completely full. At least 16,000 people there. It was packed. You look down on the playing field, and all the students that were going to graduate were seated on the playing field. My wife was graduating there. She was going to receive her master's degree from Liberty University. And I looked out across the sky, and I saw a dot. And then it got closer, and I saw another dot. And it got closer, and I saw another dot. It was 3 helicopters coming to the football field. The reason there were so many people there may not have been people watching the graduation. They were there to see the President of the United States. George Bush Sr. was going to give the keynote address. Those helicopters, there were 3 of them. They got closer and closer, and they landed in a field about a half a mile away. That was for security reasons. Didn't know which helicopter the president was in. Eventually, he made his way to the stage, and he gave his commencement address. The students received their diploma, and the day was over. As I left that stadium, there was some people following me. And I remember this one fellow saying, you know, I've never experienced that. He said, I've never seen a president, or I've never heard a president speak in person. And the other fellow said, are you sure? He said, are you sure? And he said, sure about what? He said, are you sure that was the president? We were so far away, it could have been anybody. They could have just piped his voice in. And I thought about that, and it could have been anybody down there speaking. But you know, sometimes we have to take other people's word for things. Sometimes we have to take others' words for things. I can only imagine after Jesus rose from the dead, the disciples going around and saying, he has risen. And the people would say, who? And he would say, Jesus has risen from the dead. And maybe one of the responses were, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure it was him? Are you sure it was Jesus? You know, sometimes we have doubt. We have lots and lots of doubt. The early Christians lived in a time of uncertainty. There were many things that were uncertain. We live in a time of uncertainty. What are we sure about? What are we sure about in our day and time? Are we sure we have good health? Is your health good? Are you okay? Are you sure? How is your relationships with your family? Are your relationships with your husbands and your wives and your children, are they good? Are they okay? Are you sure? How's your financial security in the world today? Are you good? Are you okay? Are you sure? What are we sure about? How's your church? Is your church doing well? Is your church doing good? Are you sure? You know, sometimes I think maybe the things we are sure about are those things we are not sure about. Many times we are unsure about many, many things. Jesus rose early in the morning. Mary was going down to the tomb to take care of his body. And she looks in the tomb and nobody's there. And she walks out and she sees Jesus, but she thinks he's a gardener. Mary may not have been completely sure of what she saw. She runs and she tells the other disciples, I have seen the Lord. They didn't just say, oh, yes, we know. They said, maybe they said, are you sure? How many times during a day does someone ask you, are you sure? Thomas wasn't sure, was he? Jesus appeared to the disciples and Thomas wasn't there. And he said, no, I'm not sure. I can only be sure if I see him and I see his wounds and I touch his wounds. Then maybe I will be sure. What are we sure about in our day and time? All along the way, there are doubts in each of our minds. We may not want to admit that, but each and every one of us has doubt. I'm sure about that. And doubt is not always bad. Oftentimes, doubt leads to belief. Oftentimes, doubt leads to belief. It did in Thomas's case. And then Thomas was sure. He said, my God, my Lord. And Jesus said, Thomas, you believe because you have seen. Blessed are those who believe and have never seen me. Never seen me. Remember the two? Remember the two? They were walking away from Jerusalem. And they were talking about all the events that had happened in Jerusalem. And Jesus himself draws near. And he tells the story of why he must undergo all the persecution, the death, and the resurrection for each and every one of us. And then they go into the house. They invite him to come into the house. And they break bread. And they witness Jesus, his marks in his hands. They were sure. And what do? They turn around and they go back to Jerusalem the very same night. And they go where the disciples are gathered and they say, we have seen the Lord. And you know what they probably said? They probably said, are you sure? Are you sure that you've seen him? And then Jesus himself appears before them. And they think he is a ghost. And Jesus says, look at me. Ghosts don't have flesh and blood. And they look at Jesus and they say, we are sure. Each and every one of them were sure. They lived their whole life. All of the disciples lived their whole life, and they died because of the faith and the good news of the gospel. They died because they were sure. You know what? From Crupperneck to Richwood to Bluefield to Atlanta to Green Valley to Linside to Mullins, back to Bluefield. That has been my Emmaus road. And many, many times in my life, Jesus has drawn near to me. And you know what? In those times, I was not sure. But many times he drew near to me. Many times he appeared to the same people time and time again, because maybe they were not sure. But you know what? In this day and time, over those 40 years, I can stand here and I can say this. I am sure. I am sure that he rose from the dead. I am sure that he is God's only Son. And I am sure that he has forgiven me over my many years of doubt. That's one thing. That's one thing that I am sure of. Today, are you sure? Amen. Let's
Look around you, look down the bar from you, at the faces that you see. Are you sure this is where you want to be? These are your friends, but are they your real friends? Do they love you as much as me? Are you sure this is where you want to be? You seem in such a hurry to lead this kind of life, and you've caused so many pain and misery. So look around you and take a good look.